I had this list of criteria.
Oh, wow.
I'm a
Okay.
big
You
list
were
maker.
prepared. Okay.
Yeah. So some of the things on my list were, I will not raise money again I hate doing development and fundraising.
Yeah.
And another one was I need to make at least $80,000 a year.
Okay.
And in Arkansas, that is a higher salary.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, funny thing is, doing what I'm doing now is I have to raise all my own support on an ongoing basis. So much for the fundraising. And and I have to, and I don't, I mean, I don't have a salary. It's like a budget based on cost of living. So
Right.
it's definitely not $80,000 a year. Um, so I think it
These
was
are your must-haves, right? At the time, but you didn't know what you didn't know.
right.
So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Michelle. Super special guest, my second Bethany ever. I'm Bethany Reese, and it's so funny. I met you, Bethany, as you know, through Michael Stinnett, the NSTEC coach. And I ask leaders when I'm done, hey, who should I be in the room with? Who do people need to hear from? And so Michael had connected me with Bethany Reese, and then Michael goes, Bethany. And I'm like, but I already, he goes, no, no, no. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You know, two amazing Bethanies? And he did, because I knew none before I met the two of you. So I'm happy to meet you. And I look forward to our conversation. So you are, and it's a long title, the SIL Global Director of Strategic Workforce Planning. And I freaking love the story behind how you landed where you are now. So welcome to the conversation. I look forward to chatting with you. And I know you have a quote to kick us off with.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting me be here. And yeah, the quote is I picked a Bible verse because of what I do.
Yeah.
And it is we make our plans, but the Lord decides where we will go, which
Um,
really is a good little snapshot of like my story, I think, my experience.
I agree. And so I'm smiling and bobbing my head because I'm remembering back. So we had our intro call of, what's going on and all the stuff. Um, can you share some of that and why that quote right now and why that resonates with you?
Yeah. So I was kind of just going along on my career path. And then probably around like 2019, it was really right before COVID. Um, I just started feeling kind of restless in what I
Hmm.
was doing. And so I sort of tried to fix it myself, like expand my business and offer different things, create new packages. I still have a consulting business, so I do like soft skills training and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's sort of taken the seat to what I'm focused on in SIL. But at that time, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm sensing I'm supposed to do something different, but maybe it's just something different in my business.
Yeah.
And I did not find fulfillment in that, and nothing seemed to really take hold very well. I'd sort of have these glimmers of like, oh, this is working or this is working, but it was never, I guess, what my expectations were. I don't know. And so then I started praying, and I was saying to God, like, I know you want me to do something different, but I don't know what it is. So I'll do whatever you want me to do, but you're going to have to show me what it is.
Hmm.
And so over the course of about 3 years, from like 2020 to 2023, I still managed my business and sought out clients and stuff. But on the side, I also interviewed for lots of jobs um, all over the place in terms of industry and role type, and followed up a lot. A lot of them were like through people I knew who would tell
Hmm.
me, like, oh, well, what about this? And I'd try it. And it seemed like all the time I was hitting these walls of just knowing that it wasn't the right thing. It
So I
really
have a
had nothing.
question for you.
Yeah.
So when you're going through this 3-year stint of, applying for jobs, were you applying for jobs and accepting roles?
Oh, no, no.
Okay, so you were just applying for 3 years
Just
stuff, and then it just didn't feel right when you look at descriptions or interview with people or whatever the thing may be. Okay,
yeah.
I got you. Because I thought, oh my gosh, I missed that part. So she's literally going. I feel like we're in a movie right now, a Hallmark movie, where I'm just going to go from thing to
It's
thing.
kind of like a Hallmark.
Yeah.
No, I just kept trying, it would always get to that last step where, or sometimes even in the very first interview, I'd feel like, oh, this is a bad fit.
Yeah.
And so as time went on, I narrowed my focus at least. I think it was beneficial for that.
Hmm.
And helping me know I definitely want something that's mission minded, probably a nonprofit. And I would love to find something like in the Christian ministry realm.
Hmm.
And I kept getting closer and closer and narrowing it down. And then finally in 2023 on LinkedIn, I saw a post from Wycliffe Bible Translators about a position that I really wasn't interested in, but I guess God just knew that would connect me to the process of applying and like becoming a stateside missionary. And so I instantly knew that was what I was supposed to do and went ahead and filled out an application. And which sort of cracked me up because I think I had told you this before, but I had this list of criteria.
Oh, wow.
I'm a
Okay,
big
you
list
were
maker.
prepared. Okay.
Yeah. So some of the things on my list were I will not raise money again I hate doing development and fundraising.
Yeah.
And another one was I need to make at least $80,000 a year.
Okay.
And in Arkansas, that is a higher salary.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, funny thing is, doing what I'm doing now is I have to raise all my own support on an ongoing basis. So much for the fundraising. And and I have to, and I don't, I mean, I don't have a salary. It's like a budget based on cost of living. So
Right.
it's definitely not $80,000 a year. Um,
These
so I
are
think it
these are
was
your
funny.
must-haves, right? At the time, but you didn't know what you didn't know.
Right. No, and I think it was like also God's way of helping me adjust my expectations and becoming humble enough to do
Hmm.
whatever. Because I was praying this prayer, like, I'll do whatever you want me to do, show me. But then I'm also making this list of like, I will do it if it meets these criteria.
Yeah, this is my really strong list of criteria. And if it falls into all this stuff, I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Right. So I would think I was sort of in that negotiating with God thing in my mind, even though I mean, I never like actively thought of it that way, but I think he got me to a place where, because of repeated instances of finding out it wasn't an application process, finding out it wasn't what I wanted, or
Hmm.
sometimes the opportunities that paid the most turned out to feel the worst,
Hmm.
in the interview process. And so I wouldn't go through with them, but I think it was God's way probably getting me willing to do what I'm doing
So
now.
what happened? I find it interesting that on LinkedIn and this thing jumps out at you. And I think I know we've all had that. We've all had that. That caught my attention. And I mean, the rest of it's just noise. We don't see it. And for whatever reason, something catches our attention and we can overthink it
Mm-hmm.
and go, that's not really the thing. To your point, it's not really a role I was interested in. Um, and intuition, God, that guidance, whatever it is, because we have it. We have it all the time, whatever people call it. And I say that because there's some people that go, I don't pray to God or I don't, but there is guidance, whatever you want to say, wherever it comes from, that we blow off. You didn't blow this one off. Why? What was different?
Well, also probably in those couple of years, I think God gave me a lot of opportunities to do what you're talking about, which is like
Yeah.
really basically just pay attention
Hmm.
and then follow through, like obey, instead of, a lot of times I would get these inklings from God and then just like make an excuse for why that didn't make sense, or
Okay.
argue back in my head and delay doing anything about it.
Right.
I mean, like, and this whole thing of where I ended up now is really a very redemptive path for me also, because when I was in college, I went on some ESL trips overseas,
So what's
and
ESL?
English as a second language,
Thank you.
like
Okay.
teaching English as
You're
a second.
in that world, right? So
Well,
SIL
yeah,
is Summer Institute of Linguistics.
yes,
And so, and I love that you, like you shared, that started out as a summer program. It's obviously grown because of demand and interest and need and all the stuff. But they still held on to, not you personally,
right,
they still held on to, Bethany made the choice that it was going to be SIL. So they held on to SIL as the acronym of the name, but not necessarily calling out the entire name. So, and we do operate in worlds of acronyms. Mine were strongly in healthcare for years. And acronyms don't translate across industries
Mhm.
because they have different meanings.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah. So English is a second language. Thank you for that.
yeah. So I did every summer in college. I did a trip like that, and it it was through a ministry organization. I loved it. It was just great getting to connect with people, learn about another culture, and feel like you're doing something that's actually helping
Hmm.
people. Um, and I really felt God calling me to keep doing that and going in that direction. And I just flat out rejected it, like
Oh,
knowing that I was rejecting it, like um, really because I was in love with
okay.
someone, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I go overseas, we'll break up and never be together. So I said no. Well, we ended up breaking up anyway. And but what happened was then I spent a long time in my career really regretting that choice, but kind of knowing, because of finances and circumstances, you can't really go backwards to a place when you're straight out of college and you have
Yeah.
all these opportunities and no
Hmm.
ties. Um, so then when this came along, I wasn't really looking for it, but I can see like God was calling me closer and closer to the world of Christian ministry
Hmm.
context. I did like a part-time gig as a chaplain the year before.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so there were little things along the way, and he kept getting me like more. I had more and more opportunities in my church, and
Yeah.
at first, I'm questioning it sometimes, like in those 3 years of, do you just want me to like serve more in my church, or are
Yeah.
you wanting me to go back to, I already had a master's, but I'm like, maybe I need to go get like a master's of
PhD.
divinity or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, so I kind of explored, I just kept testing waters and putting feelers out, and then I would just try to sense like, is this it or not? So it was a long couple of years
Well,
and
I was
sort of
going to say,
frustrating.
how do you keep yourself positive and moving forward in that thing and not frustrated? Or did you get frustrated and you just kind of picked yourself up by your bootstraps?
I got super frustrated.
Okay. Okay. Because the way you're describing it now is it was this journey of 2 to 3 years. I explored stuff, but you're probably like, okay, I need more than this to go on. I mean, I'm
Yes.
turning rocks over. I'm applying for stuff. None of this feels right.
Yeah. I think it was kind of like God was throwing me a bone every once in a while of like the chaplain opportunity. It was only
Yeah.
a couple hours a week, but it was fulfilling. And so it was sort of meeting that need for me while I was waiting for more clarity.
You know
Uh,
what just came to me, Bethany?
what?
Is that it's interesting. And it may not be true or not, but it feels like you had been so long, maybe you had some regrets of whatever, but you were so strongly connected to that work, that purpose work. Okay. And you left it, right, for a love, and we all make decisions like that. But it's almost like God wanted you to really experience what you were missing so that you could make the decision to step in. Because it's the difference between being here in our heads and being here in our hearts.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like to me is like, step into this. Do you see how you feel when you're doing this work? And I think we all do it to where, like the work that I'm doing now with leadership development coaching, and I describe it as it fills my cup. I could literally do back-to-back coaching sessions with people and I'm not exhausted, right? And
Mm-hmm.
other work, you're like, yeah, I'm out, tag me out, I'm done. So that's what it feels like to me when I'm hearing your story is here, you need to step in and experience this and realize this is what it felt like when you were in college doing this work. And this is the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, when you were talking about that, it made me think of, it's so interesting how God prepared me for my specific role that I'm doing now over the last 24 years of like, I've never been like a long-term job person. I like coming into something that's often a mess, filling the holes, figuring out what the problems are, solving some things, getting things in really good shape, and then I'm like, I'm done.
You're
There's
bored.
this now, yeah,
You're
I
bored.
got to do something else.
Yeah.
So I've done that over and over and over in with organizations, and um, the good thing is if you operate that way, even if you leave before they wish you had left, when you leave things better than when you got there, they aren't mad about it.
No, no.
So I have good relationships with all the people I work
Yeah.
with, institutions, and um, but now I can see like it was really essential for me to have my foot in a lot of different seemingly unrelated things, like in higher ed, because in SIL, um, I say like SIL is like the higher ed of Bible translation.
Mm,
Um, we have a lot of PhD level linguists, and it's just like that creates a certain culture that if I had not worked in higher ed for so long, I think it would feel very foreign to me or maybe even uncomfortable. But
mm-hmm,
because I'm already comfortable with working with people of that nature, then
mm-hmm.
it feels normal. And then um like my experience with nonprofits and as a consultant, but also working for nonprofits directly, it gave me that sort of like perspective of empathy for when you don't have a big budget. Here's how you
Mm-hmm.
have to go about things, which I think I really needed. I
There's
needed
no
the
money tree in
fundraising
the backyard.
experience.
Yeah, no money tree. No. Well, no,
Yeah.
and not-for-profit is different than for-profit organizations, and there's different business models for not-for-profit. You
Yeah.
know, there's not like I work for Sutter Health, not-for-profit organization, but they have an engine to generate money. They also have philanthropy arm, right?
Mhm.
To be able to do stuff for equipment, those higher purchases, building buildings, all the stuff. But when I think about what you're going into a not-for-profit, I don't know that there's a revenue generating arm of that organization, or is it purely philanthropic, which is a different level of not-for-profit?
Yeah. It's definitely purely philanthropic. I mean,
Yeah,
we have like a few small little ways to generate a little revenue here and there. But they're not, that doesn't
no,
pay for anything really.
no.
Um, it might like
Like
compensate a
coffee,
little bit for
like
costs of
coffee.
travel. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's a different world.
Yeah.
And then like my for the past really when I started in career services in higher ed back in 2003, from then until really still now, I guess, I started having to be a liaison with like HR and talent acquisition leaders. And so I got my foot in the door in that world and was part of it, even though I wasn't an HR person.
Hmm.
Um, so that's been really beneficial because I've been able to like network a lot with people who are in SHRM organizations, and um, I can call on them. Some of them will let me reach out to them for like free advice about things related to SIL.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's been so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just giving me a background that is um, sort of was missing on our team. And like
Hmm.
my supervisor has said, like, man, God like gave you all the exact things you needed for this. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. So it's interesting too how like, yes, I said no to God and I regretted that. But like God does all the time, he redeems things. And so he's still preparing me for 24 years for this along the way, even though I had not gone in the direction that he set out for me. So,
It's interesting because when I think back, right, to where you said no back then, Um, and and in my head it was you didn't really say no, you just said not yet or not right now. Because in order for you to have gone through and for him to have prepared you through this stuff, you actively, Bethany, had to have said yes to step into those each of those opportunities, right? Because we always have a choice.
mhm,
So when you were going through that stuff, even though you hadn't made the connections, because a lot of times we can all look back at our careers and go, Someone had a plan, right?
Yeah.
Because when I tell like clients that I'll be with, I tell people my background is a mixed bag. I mean, I've literally got finance and process improvement, and let's throw coaching in there, and hypnotherapy certification, and AI, and my undergrad's in IT, and all the stuff, right? And people go, huh? And it doesn't make sense if you were just to throw it out there, but it makes sense because of the humans that end up in front of me that, to your point, I can relate and connect with people on a multi levels, right? And so, like, even with the podcast that I want to do and share with people's journeys so they can see themselves and go, okay, yeah, I see where I can do that. And so it helps other people. That the ability to do what I've done, right? And your ability to do what you've done, I'm able to have conversations with people that otherwise I may not have been able to at the same level and have a relatability is what I'll say. But you had to have said yes. So as you're going through all these job things, did you listen to your gut? Did you listen to guidance? And not necessarily connecting it as that?
I think so. Sometimes more than others.
Yeah.
There's always those jobs that we take that seem pointless, or like one time I did sales for a year. It was
It
inside
seemed
sales.
pointless.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm sure there are
Yeah.
people that like sales. I just don't love it.
Yeah.
Actually, I probably am closer to hating it. Um, but I did it for a year because the opportunity arose very naturally. Like, I was out talking to people about jobs for students, and they told me about the jobs that were for entry level roles, but then they told me about this other one in case I knew someone. And I just was like, oh, I kind of like this place. It seems
Mhm.
very chill. And I was in a position that I didn't like. So I was kind of keeping my eyes open. So I really
Technology.
did
She
not
froze.
love
There she is. You're
sales.
bad. You froze for a minute. I'm like,
Oh,
technology.
I'm
She
sorry.
froze, and now she's back. So,
Yeah.
so you had the sales job that you were in a job you didn't love, and so it wasn't the thing they were telling you if you know somebody else. And I hear it in your head that you're like, oh my God, I might be interested in doing that.
Yeah. And so I did, and I did that for a year, and it wasn't obviously my dream job, or I'd still be doing it, but it paid the bills, and I learned things, like, so
Yeah.
later when I became a business owner, all that sales experience was very helpful. Um, and got me much more comfortable asking people. The ask is the hardest part, I think, of
It
sales.
is. Because there's different types of salespeople. There's the salespeople that'll lead people up, and then there's the closers, right?
Mhm.
The people that go, okay, it's time to sign on the dotted line. I sold, it was for 4 months of my career, cars
Oh,
back in the 80s. Cars, yes. And I was the only female on this car lot back in the 80s in
wow.
San Diego. But
Wow.
it prepares you. Clearly not my dream job. I didn't want to hang out with people because they'll skate you. They'll go out and you're looking, it's your turn, and then they're off. And so, but I remember one night this guy came in on a bicycle and everybody left him alone. And I went over and talked to him, right? Because what else are you going to do?
Hmm.
And that night, he loaded his bicycle up in the back of his new truck that he just bought, you know, because he was in the military and an officer in the military, and he's just out riding his bike in San Diego looking at cars. Smart man, by the way, because you can just load the bike up. You don't have to coordinate with a friend to come and get the other stuff. But that experience, to your point, is like it prepares you for the other thing, even though it's not your longtime career thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm grateful for all those things along the way, and it's easy to say that now, because in that time when I was in sales, I hated it the whole time. Um, but now it's like, oh yeah, I can see how God's using this, and this, um, and it's awesome to see it all come together, and like
Yeah.
in career fulfillment, we always talk about, well, does it match your skills and your passion and your abilities and your experience, and it does. And it's like when you finally find something that is like the culmination of all those things, it's awesome. Um,
So when you saw the job on LinkedIn, that you go, something caught your attention, but it wasn't a role that you wanted. What happened?
So I went ahead and just applied, and then I had my initial like screening, they asked, "Are you interested in that specific role or just in general in the organization?" And I said, "Not in that role, but I'm also open to anything. Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of experience and I know I could probably fit in different places. So you tell me like what do you have that you need?" And so they came back at me with two. I did tell them I could only serve part-time. And so
Okay.
they came back and showed me two part-time options, neither of which were very interesting to me, but I picked one and went with it. And then a few months in, I felt really sure that that was not the direction I was supposed to go. So I was like, I don't feel like I'm supposed to do this. Is it too late to like change? And they were like,
Yeah.
no, you just put in a change of request form. And so I did that. Eventually got connected with a team overseas that was in the same place I had served in college.
Which
And
is crazy, by the way.
yeah, that was definitely a God thing. Uh,
Yeah.
the role wasn't definitely not my dream role. It
Yeah.
was a very entry level HR role. And it was honestly sort of like one of those things where you're not getting to use any of your skills. You know, you're still helping out, but it sort
Yeah.
of can be draining doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
But I did it because I had told God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so I really thought I'm going to be doing this forever, or at least hopefully be on that team forever, even if I eventually change roles.
Now,
And
why did you want to be on that team?
just the people that they serve,
Okay.
and you know, like feeling an affinity with that, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and it's also because of security, they have a hard time recruiting.
Yeah.
And so I sort of sympathize with them about that.
Yeah.
I still do. Um, so I did that. And then while I was serving in that role, I met my boss in an HR community practice meeting. And he was sharing about strategic workforce planning and basically saying, we haven't started doing this, but we're going to. And gave us a little information, then answered questions. And I asked a ton of questions. And he later emailed me and said, if you have more questions, you can contact me by email. Um, and so I emailed him some more, and he said, I think it might be easier if we just on Zoom. And so we did. And then during that conversation, he said, I did not expect our conversation to go this way, but I have heard good things about you from another senior leader. And I just wondered if will you pray about or consider joining my team
Yeah.
and doing strategic workforce planning? Or
Yeah.
there were other realms too that were options, but it's workforce innovation strategies. So all the things that SIL really needs to be doing that people are doing out in the secular workforce, but we're a little behind.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, I mean, it's really just all under talent management,
Yeah.
development. But so I said, yeah, I will pray about it. But really, I was like, one of those times when you say I'll pray about it just to like, so that you don't have a hard no that
Yeah,
hurts somebody's
I'll
feelings.
look at it. Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. We all
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And then because at the moment you're like, or let me check my calendar to see if,
Right.
oh yeah, oh gosh, I'm so booked that day.
Yeah.
Go back and you're like, oh, thank God I'm booked. Yeah.
So I did pray about it because I told him I would. And it surprised me because when I prayed about it, I basically said to God, like, I know that you already have me where you want me, but this opportunity has come up. So if you want me to do this, just let me know. And he was like, for sure, letting me know very strongly. And I was like, okay, I didn't expect this. So I said yes. So then here I am. It was the best opportunity. And I'm so glad that I did pray about it and really tried to be open about it, because I didn't want to leave focusing on that specific team. But
Right.
what ended up happening is at a global level of service, I'm able to serve all of our teams, them included. And really, it's such an impactful opportunity, and that I would never have had
Yeah.
said yes.
Yeah.
So
I freaking love that story. I love all the stories, and I loved it when I heard about it, and hearing it again, it just makes me smile. So, how long have you been in the role that you're in now?
since July
Okay.
last year, so not a
Okay.
year yet.
Okay.
And we're
Uh,
still really getting things going.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have a sense that this is where you want to stay?
I don't think I'll ever stay doing one thing.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Because you fix it and then you go, okay,
yeah,
what else is broken and a mess and actually needs my talent?
yes. And
So,
also, like, I just had a conversation yesterday with my supervisor, and he asked me the same thing. And he
oh,
said, "Would you?"
interesting.
Yeah, he was like, "Would you ever think that in the future you might consider doing this or this?" And so I think there will be, because it's the great thing is being on workforce innovation strategies is
Yeah.
there's always something new that we're trying to work on,
Yeah.
a new like whole world to create. And so, like I told him, I'm willing to do whatever. If tomorrow you we found somebody who could do strategic workforce planning, but they couldn't do these two other things that you could do, so can you do one of these? Then I would be
Mhm.
like, sure, that's fine.
Well, and I sense that your thing is there an opportunity to build the car while we're driving down the road? That's what I want to be doing, right?
Yes.
Or design the stuff. And so it's cool. And the sense that I have is that you know the lane that you're going to be in, you know the area of focus that you're going to be in. And so I love the fact that within that org, you've got all these other opportunities so that, and I had that with Sutter Health because I was there for 17 and a half years. I could be an analyst. I could be a finance director. I could be a lean consultant. I could be the manager of education and standards. I could be the director of the improvement team, right? All within one organization. And I sense that for you and that opportunity that you have is you can still serve your mission, right? And God's work and the stuff that fills you up, purpose stuff, and still satisfy your need to make a difference and not be bored.
Yes. Yeah. That's one thing I really love about where God
Yeah.
ended up putting me, because it's a perfect fit for me too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love
it,
it.
yeah, it's like you get to serve, but it's not this day in and day out martyring of yourself in order to, I mean, because that's sort of how it felt when I was just doing the paperwork and marking off
Yeah.
somebody else's to-dos. It's like, I know that they need this, and I said I would try to help, so I'm just going to keep doing it. But there wasn't fulfillment in it for me. And so it's so
Yeah.
cool that that was only for a short season,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Good job. Thank you for your time. I freaking enjoyed this conversation. And so as we wrap up, what one or two things, Bethany, would you love people to walk away with?
Mm. Well, the first thing I think is to never think that it's too late for you to say yes to God, or to
Mm,
um, go in a new direction. Like, even if you feel like I did, like, oh, I rejected that a long time ago, so now I just have to move on.
mhm.
Um, I think it took me probably a decade to get to the point where I had more awareness that I could say yes to other things or change my path. Um, and that would be probably the second thing is, don't be afraid to just like keep asking, keep pushing. If you
Mhm.
get a no, there's a quote in recovery that a 12-step program, where the speaker said, a no doesn't always mean no. It means that someone is misinformed.
Mm.
And so sometimes when I get a no about, like, I'm really interested in this, can I do this? Well, no, because we don't have the money. Then I'm like, that just means I need to find a different way to fund it. Um, so I think like pushing, 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 especially if you're interested in nonprofit world, is
Mhm.
like an important thing to develop and
Yeah.
gain confidence in.
Um, I'm bobbleheading because I agree with you. I think the other thing that comes to mind for me is, and it's along this line of it's never too late. It's never too late to fill in the blank, right?
Mhm.
If you want to change careers, if you want to go out on your own, if you want whatever the stuff is, it's only too late if you believe it's too late.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the other message too, right? If you feel called to do something else, if you feel like there's more, if you feel like, there's some regret because you left stuff on the table, recognize that that's what it is and then fricking go get it.
Mhm.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with you. So
Yeah. And I think like
I'm
just
more than
that
that.
idea of putting it out, like applying for something or exploring an option does not mean that you're changing directions. It just means you're exploring an option. You
Yeah.
can always still say no. You can always still decide that isn't for me after all. Because I think sometimes we get like stuck in that place where if I even fill out one application, that means I'm like betraying my
Oh yeah, no, that's a good
or,
call out too. Yeah. It's like if you feel called to do something else, right? Explore it, to your point, explore it. You're not cheating on whoever you're currently working for, right?
right.
If you're doing some exploration. The other thing that too, based on what you just said, is follow your gut, follow guidance, follow whatever it is that you do, listen to that. If it doesn't feel right and you did it at points, you're like, oh, this isn't right. Well, don't keep going. Don't keep pushing through because it doesn't feel right.
Mhm.
So I just thank you. I appreciate this because I think a lot of us need reminders of it. That, it isn't too late. Follow your gut. And there's no regrets along the way.
Yeah.
You're gathering up whatever experience you have, no one takes it away from you. So
Yeah.
when you show up for the next thing, you've got whatever you've got and all this other stuff that you got along the way, which is a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And it can all be used. God can use it all.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, everybody needs it. So
Yeah.
thank you again. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and Bethany Wallace. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll chat with you soon. Have a freaking awesome day. Thank you.